We know that wars and the threat of wars has always been the favorite means to divide and conquer and keep conquered the people that they now control or want to control. The threat of atomic war is more of a psychological weapon than it is a military weapon. It's hard to get your head around that. For the first time in history, as I see it, this is something that never happened before, never could happen before, because of technocracy, because of the technical advancement of the technical means of reaching the minds and the fears and the hopes and all the base instincts of every human being.
What do you think about the Israeli lobby and the pull that they seem to have on conservatives who would otherwise be against giving all their money to foreign countries, otherwise be against international war with Iran, which is a major ally of Russia and China, or who would otherwise be against a country that blackmails people with Mossad agents like Jeffrey Epstein? What's going on among conservatives that they're so dead set in favor of Israel?
It's propaganda. It's training of the mind. It's, in a way, we're all kind of little AI computers.
What do you want your legacy to be 50, 100 years from now? Hey guys, before we get back to our exclusive interview, I urge you to check those links in the description and get prepared today, because we are in, unfortunately, dark times, but we can make light of it by being prepared for what comes next. I urge you to check out heavensharvest.com for long-term storable foods that are non-GMO. There's organic kits, heirloom seeds, water filtration and storage, and books on how to get started. Use code WHAM, W-A-M, and you'll get 5% off as well as free shipping in the United States. Incredibly important to make sure that you aren't dependent on the system that enslaves us for help later on down the road. You need to get prepared today. This is a currency in the future. Also, check out whambeef.com for 10 plus year shelf life freeze-dried steak. There's 12 servings per bag, and there's freeze-dried chicken and ground beef as well. Use code WHAMBEEF, W-A-M-B-E-E-F, all one word, and you will get 20% off on those items. And of course, this is guaranteed non-mRNA, no lab-grown meat, all American beef that's 100% natural. Stock up on this before you're not allowed to, before you are stuck in that soil and green type system, because it is happening and we cannot ignore it any longer. Also, make sure to hit that like button, share on social media, hit the notification bell, and hit subscribe if you have not yet already. And anyway, my friends, let's get back to this exclusive interview. Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and we are joined by the legend himself, G. Edward Griffin, author extraordinaire of many things, and someone that we've been talking to for over a decade here at World Alternative Media, and has about 65, 66 years really getting that message out to the public that we all should have been listening to many decades ago, because we're witnessing the effects of many of the things that Mr. Griffin has been warning of for many decades. And it's unfortunate that we haven't done enough at this point to actually prepare for what's to come. And I want to get into many of these issues that we talk about, but I want to also mention that the Red Pill Expo is coming up. I've been to many of them before, going back to 2017, and he does such an amazing job of getting amazing people out there. You could check it out at redpillexpo.org and redpilluniversity.org. It's going to be happening in Tulsa, Oklahoma, from July 12th to 13th on stage. And of course, you could get a free live stream by going to redpilluniversity.org or redpillexpo.org. Mr. Griffin will be there. People like Alex Newman, Michael Yon, Michelle Melendez, Carrie Rivera, Dr. Brian Ardis, and the list goes on and on and on. Richard Grove, many amazing faces that you will recognize, and amazing people that you can hang out with afterwards, of course, in the audience. So again, check that link in the description. And I want to get right into what's really just breaking the news across the board right now, Mr. Griffin. First of all, thank you for joining us. We are in for, unfortunately, something that we have seen before with the Iraq war, in that we're seeing a push towards the Iran war. Israel, this country that has essentially blackmailed every major political leadership in the world, and of course, financed so many propaganda campaigns over the years. They pushed the Iraq war, weapons of mass destruction, on Congress back in 2002. Now we have bombings of Tehran in Iran. And of course, we have the residual Iran bombed Tel Aviv as I speak today, which got through their so-called Iron Dome. What is your first reaction to this news regarding a war in Iran?
Well, first of all, I must confess I have not been following the details the last couple of days because I have been getting prepared for the Red Pill Expo, and I'm way behind schedule. But I have the general ideas, so it's easy to have an opinion, even though I respectfully reserve the right to be wrong. All right.
Right.
But it seems to me, Josh, that this is what you might call same old, same old. We've been down this path before. We know that there are small factions in the world, which I like to call the cabal, because I can't think of a better word for it. Some people call it the enemy. Some people call it communism. Some people call it fascism. The deep state. All these words flowing around. So my word of the month is the cabal, because we do know that there is a very small group of people, and they're not restricted to any particular nationality or any race or any ethnic background, although I think some people within the cabal would like us to think that's the case, because they are interested, and this is the because part, they are interested in world domination. And they know that there are so few of them compared to so many of us that would seem to be an impossible goal because of the difference in numbers. And a lot of times you hear in the patriot movement, people say, well, they can't do that. So look how many we are. They can't deal with that. Oh, yes, they can. There are many ways of doing it. One way is with superior weaponry. But this is not the good old days where you load your musket and you go out in the battlefield and you meet the enemy and that's all he has is muskets also. And so then the rest of it is how much ammo do you have and so forth. No, those days are long gone. This cabal is in charge of the firing power of the greatest nations of the world. And they have weaponry that would just make our little pistols and rifles look terribly sick by comparison. So it's not that anymore. It's a propaganda war. And so the secret to their success, they know, is to divide us, to make sure that we don't all get together. And so one of their strongest weapons in this war, this Psy war that we're in, is to get us all fighting against each other and thinking, these are the bad guys. No, those are the bad guys. No, those are the bad guys. And they're saying the same thing about us. So we're all dividing up to see who is the enemy? So many people know that they're out there, but they don't know who they are. So anyway, I see that going on in operation. So we know that wars and the threat of wars has always been the favorite means to divide and conquer and keep conquered the people that they now control or want to control. So wars are naturally, we always are facing wars. I think if it weren't for this cabal, there'd probably be another one, I suppose. It's partly human nature. But at least if it weren't for this one, we probably wouldn't be quite so far down that path as we are now. By being victimized by this propaganda of there's an enemy out there someplace, and we've got to wake up, before it's too late. And that part of the argument is usually true, but we don't recognize which one is the enemy. And so that's part of it, and that's my sort of canned answer to any question involving wars. And the other thing is, if they can get us preoccupied in the fact that hot wars are the big end of civilization, the end of freedom. If we get into a war, well, we all lose, right? That's the line. No, they're not going to. If we ever have an atomic war, in my view at least, it's not going to be what we envision, like the whole world is destroyed. It'll be, somebody will be destroyed by somebody else, and most of the planet will be left alone, quite well, thank you, for the conquerors. And in that sense, the threat of atomic war is more of a psychological weapon than it is a military weapon. It's hard to get your head around that because, I've been raised back in the day when, they were telling the kids to jump under the tables every time the siren goes off. Mm-hmm. And we've been conditioned from zero to where we are today to think that atomic war is the end of the planet or the end of all human civilization. And we've already reaching that point right now without atomic wars, because the real weapon today is psychology. It's psycho. And if we can fear the atomic war and do anything, I mean anything, to avert it, including surrender our liberty and give power, more and more power to our own national version of the cabal, or turn it over to some international version like the United Nations or something like that. Anything that's held up as a hope, a promise, of putting an end to all these physical wars. I mean, most people in the world are suckers for that argument because they don't realize that that is the war that we're in today. It is a psychological war. So all of that is my...
Absolutely. And sorry to cut you off, but I want to hear your thoughts on this idea of people perpetually seeing it the same way as with the Iraq war, weapons of mass destruction. Then people wake up to the fact that it is a lie, that there was no weapons of mass destruction. Now we're seeing, oh, well, Iran has these missiles that are intercontinental, they're ballistic, they're going to enter the US, they're going to bomb all of us if we don't take care of them. This mentality of people just repeating the same metric over and over again and trying a new way to justify it.
Yes, well, that's really, thank you for cutting me off on that, because that I was taking too long to get to exactly your point, because no, I tend to ramble too much, but
you and me both.
As I go through these thoughts, I keep thinking of other things and throw them in just to slow down the process while I think of the next thing to say. But that certainly is where all of that was headed, and that is that it's that propaganda. It's the old Nazi version of, if you tell a lie that's big enough and tell it often enough, everybody will believe it. And that's the strategy. That's because they were onto the fact that that was the beginning of a psychological war, even back in World War II. You've got to convince the people that a lie is the truth. And that's psychological. It's not just, here comes the Huns, and look, here they're at the gates, and we got to go down and meet them at the gates, and either they win or we win. No, it's all about who you fear, what are the weapons, what's going to happen to us. And so that brings up the question, the bigger question. I'm not digressing on this one, not Josh. I don't think so anyway. The bigger question is that, we used to have this saying that there's nothing new under the sun. And in fact, I just said it a moment ago when I said same old, same old. It's sort of a conditional thought. There's nothing new under the sun. It's always happened before, except now. For the first time in history, as I see it, this is something that never happened before, never could happen before, because of technocracy, because of the technical advancement of the technical means of reaching the minds and the fears and the hopes and all of the base instincts of every human being. Hatred, envy, anger, and they also now can reach the physical and the physical side of psychology. They give us drugs, they get us doped up, they get us dependent, they put stuff in our water supply, telling us it's good for our teeth, and they're trying to reduce the population by reducing fertility rates and all of it. This is all new to history. So now the war is much bigger and much more invisible to the eye of the person who's not studying it. He's just responding to these impulses and these triggers. So that is, I think, the other element, maybe the most important element of what's going on, is that not only are we being divided so that we can be conquered, but we're being divided in such a way, psychological ways, and now biological ways, first time in history that that's ever happened, that we're even more helpless unless we really get smart and figure out what these tactics are. And that is, interestingly enough, that is the main focus of our upcoming Red Pill Expo this time. I'm trying to focus more on that issue than any other one, because I consider it's the one that the people of the world know the least about and should know the most about. So to summarize my answer to your question, it's part of this new technology. It's a war for sure, and they're trying to get us into it, and they're trying to condition us now to think we've got to get into it because it's for our own best interest. We've got to do this before they come and bomb our cities or whatever. And so we're being conditioned to accept war, the old-fashioned style, as the only solution. Even though we hate it, it's the best thing for us.
I've never seen so many people on the conservative and libertarian side so convinced of war in a way that in the past they would not be. I mean, we could say the neocons of the Iraq war, sure. But of course, the conservative movement moved more in a libertarian direction the last 20 or so years. And now people that were supporting Dr. Ron Paul are now saying, well, if we don't do that, all these Muslims in the Middle East will come over here. And it's like, okay, first of all, who armed and funded these rebel groups in the Middle East? Who did a military coup in 1953 in Iran? Who armed the Ayatollahs who then fought back against the so-called CIA? Who are arming and funding these people that are then in turn justifying them going after these groups? Like, Israel has been lobbying the US Congress for decades now on this new enemy in their area that we all need to defend them from. And I find very few people understand the overall agenda, and it's arching into technocracy, of course, emergency orders, get everyone on their knees and dependent, and, you know, end up on social credit, this kind of stuff that, you know, people like Patrick Wood spoke about alongside Anthony Sutton back in the 70s with trilaterals over Washington. But Mr. Griffin, what do you think about the Israeli lobby and the pull that they seem to have on conservatives who would otherwise be against giving all their money to foreign countries, otherwise be against international war with Iran, which is a major ally of Russia and China, or who would otherwise be against a country that blackmails people with Mossad agents like Jeffrey Epstein? What's going on among conservatives that they're so dead set in favor of Israel?
Well, there are two good questions there. First of all, you mentioned Anthony Sutton, and that reminds me of one of his books called The Best Enemy Money Can Buy. And that in a phrase explains what's going on. We have been building our own enemies, financing them, giving them the technology to have we've been sending them the airplanes and the ammunition so they could become our enemy more effectively. And this is hard for most people to realize because they're not thinking in terms of modern welfare. Welfare too, but warfare. They're thinking in terms of the old style of warfare. And this is psychological. We've got to have an enemy if we're going to be willing to surrender our liberties and do things that are against our prime principles. Survival is the most prime principle. So if we can be convinced through propaganda, there's the key, through propaganda in our news and schools and everywhere you look, we're getting fed one side of an argument only, then the mind can be, if it's not aware, can be easily moved to surrender their principles in order to survive. So if that's how it is, you know, I've often thought, in defense of the public, it's easy to say, why don't these idiots, why don't they wake up, you know? Well, I was an idiot once too. I probably still am in a lot of issues. So I really have more sympathy than I used to about the people who are still being fooled by all this. Why not? I mean, what the heck? They haven't come to a Red Pill Expo. They don't know. They haven't heard the other side of these arguments. And our enemy leans heavily on that on balance. So how does Israel, and I'm going to say now, when I say Israel, I'm not talking about the Jewish people here. I'm talking about a state, a government.
It's sad that we even have to say that these days, because immediately it's canned as people like Congressman Randy Fine and even the Trump administration to a great extent are saying, hey, you say something about Israel, you're talking about all Jews, you're anti-Semitic, and you could be charged with a hate crime. We're living in a strange time where we can't seem to separate governments. Same goes for Iran, by the way. If I say I support the people of Iran from not getting bombed by Israel, people assume that means I love the Ayatollahs. It's a very strange thing.
I know. Well, that's part of the propaganda war. It's our mind conditioning. We're not seeing through the veil. We're not seeing through the highly structured information that we're getting that tips our minds that way unless we're alert to it. So we're in a chess game, and we don't know the rules of the game. We're going to lose. So a chess master, which the cabal is made up of chess masters, they know all the finite rules of the game. They know some trick moves that we never even heard about. Yeah. They think 2 and 3 moves ahead. We're lucky to think 1 move ahead, and we lose. And it's all psychology. It doesn't mean that the hand that picks up the move isn't any stronger than the other one. It's the mind that determines the move. So that is I think the theme that we're talking about is it's time to break through the old style of thinking of warfare. Warfare is not military anymore. Military is a function of it, but it's primarily, as I see it, it has 2 primary uses. One is to to provide a basis for fear of military annihilation, that it is a military war. And the fear of that is the psychological component that it really serves. And the other thing is, once they get a population maneuvered into the corner and has no place else to go and it's too late to turn around, then they use the military to control the population, to keep them from saying, oh, I made a mistake. Can we do this over again? No, sorry, you gave us martial law to put all those bad people in prison that you funded. And
Yeah.
So
what do you think is the obsession of so many on the conservative side with a country like Israel, though? I mean, I find it very strange that I could see where the lobby is. I could see where the blackmail is coming from. I understand that a lot of people are blackmailed and paid off by AIPAC and many other lobbies that also entrench themselves in other industries outside of just the government. But I find it very strange that of all the countries, it's like the one that no conservatives are allowed to complain about or criticize. It's the one that if you do, it's suddenly hate speech, whereas most conservatives would say when the left says, that side of the paradigm says, hey, that's hate speech for saying that about an African-American group or that about a Muslim group or that about a trans group. Suddenly when it's Israel, the so-called right become the left in theory under the guise of, protecting Israel, but it's basically wokeness as they themselves say.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm back to my first answer. It's propaganda. It's training of the mind. Is in a way we're all kind of little AI computers. Mm-hmm. And you notice when they talk about development of AI and going into new areas, they always talk about training the system. I find that word is to be a perfect example of what I'm talking about. What they're talking about is programming the system. They want us to eventually think that AI is going to be some kind of a human parallel. And so it's something you don't program, it's something you train, like a child. And you see how they're conditioning our thinking just by the use of the word training. Mm-hmm. They're just programming, that's what they're talking about. But they want us to think of the system which they program. They want it to think of something independent of human intervention, superior intelligence, that is always for the best and so forth, so we can worship it and obey it. And it's all propaganda. Right. People don't see that, and they better wake up, because that's how they're going to wind up in eternal prison.
And it's encroaching on us fast. You mentioned AI and technocracy, and I think that's one of the most important issues for someone to know today, because if you look at the background of all issues, whether it be bird flu hoaxes or COVID hoaxes, whether it be a supply chain issue, whether it be the economy, whether it be war, civil war, or global war, what you end up with is emergency orders, and then in comes the AI digital ID infrastructure that many of us have been warning about for so long. Now, President Trump just met in Saudi Arabia with a Saudi crown prince, alongside Alex Karp, CEO of Palantir, and Peter Thiel, who Palantir makes AI drones for Israel to indiscriminately bomb children in Gaza. So we have AI robots, Skynet, if you will. They were meeting with Sam Altman of OpenAI, Larry Fink of BlackRock, all the players, Elon Musk, who wants to put chips in your brain attached to a Pentagon-funded mesh network, all the people necessary to bring in this global technocracy. Yet most people are quiet about it, despite Trump putting $500 billion into AI. The list goes on and on and on. With the current situation worldwide of all these things adding up at the same time, it's not a coincidence. Where do you think digital IDs come in? Where do you think these emergency orders come in? And how close do you think we are to that?
Well, it's not so much what I think about that, it's what they tell us about that. I mean, they're pretty open, but they use vocabulary, words that sound good. There's going to be a unified world, they'll say. Oh, that's nice. But they could have said, it will control you all. That's why you'll be unified, is because you'll all be subject to our rule. Oh, well, that's not so nice. The same thing. And they're good. They're masters at vocabulary. And of course, all totalitarians are, but these people have been studying it for a long time now. You can even go to most major universities and take courses on propaganda or advertising or attitude manipulation and so forth. It's a profession now. And the science of it has been well advanced, and the people who are the subjects and the victims of all this have not been alerted to that fact. And that's the reason why we're supposed to laugh when somebody thinks that there's a conspiracy. Oh, another conspiracy theorist. Ha 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 ha. Well, that's just proof that they have been already they have been won over. Their minds are already closed to the only possible explanation for everything that we're talking about. So anyway, you asked me what my opinion is. My opinion is that it's obvious. Once you clear your mind of all the debris that's been deliberately pumped into it by the process itself, we have all been victimized by it. I suspect all of us. I certainly was. Most of the hardcore beliefs that I now have, based on my own experience and my own research and observation, are totally different than what I had when I was a child or a young man. I'm buying into almost anything that came off the boob tube, and after all, those are the authorities. And if a government official said something, well, that's got to be true. It's the government, Right. And it wasn't until I realized that that's the least place you would go, the last place you would go if you were looking for truth, because governments and any institutions which have a lot of power and money, they're magnets to the predator class, and all the suede shoe con artists of the world want to go into government. That way they get to be paid to do the things they want to do. So anyway, once you get a little older and you see the reality of that, then it's easier to understand it. But I feel sorry for the young people going through the school system now. The government-run school system, and even a lot of the private school systems too. But they're not being taught this at all. They're being taught to scoff at what we're talking about.
Well, even the alternative media, a lot of them today will follow a path to whatever their new narrative is that still leads to, hey, vote this guy in. You're sitting on your hand if you don't vote this guy in. Meanwhile, you're waiting for someone else to do something, which is the epitome of sitting on your hands. I want to sway for a moment, Mr. Griffin. In your lifetime, the term conspiracy theorist was invented. It was actually a term that was put forward by, I believe, the CIA back in the late 1940s, early 50s, though it was used most notably after the JFK assassination on a global scale. So I want to hear, what was the first time that you were called a conspiracy theorist? Because you have been what someone would call a conspiracy theorist if they're blind to the facts of what they're dealing with since at least the 50s. So I'd like to hear when was the first time you heard that term directed at you?
I don't remember the first time I heard that term, but whenever it was, I probably thought that I had heard it before, because it meant pretty much the same thing. What I do remember, coming first into the movement in 1960, and starting to hang out with the few people I could find that believed the same thing, understood the same thing, we were called the tin hat wearers and the kooks, the weirdos, the geeks, the weird people. And that's what the conspiracy theory is supposed to equate anyway. I feel these are weird people. They don't think straight. They're stupid. And wearing a tin hat or a tin foil hat or a pyramid. I've actually gone to some health conventions back in those days where, as a joke, mind you, they wore these tin hats and pyramids because they knew that they were being called that. And it was their way of, like our American colonists were called the Yankee Doodles. That was a very derogatory word until they said, yeah, we're Yankee Doodles. And then it became positive. Well, they stopped calling them Yankee Doodles anyway. So anyway, it reminded me of that. And so these people back in the 60s and 70s were fighting back by saying, yeah, look at us, here we are. And so I think once we start saying, yeah, here I am, conspiracy theorist, boo, and making fun of it, then the impact wears off. I don't know. Absolutely. Otherwise, there's no cure for this unless you take the right medicine, and the right medicine is knowledge. To realize that what the wacko people are saying is true, and then you can break through it.
And then on the other side of the medicine, it's people that are getting their 11th vaccine. But, we can't help everyone. We try our best. And by the way, speaking of tinfoil, there's another conspiracy right there. Now you can't even find it. It's aluminum. So, I mean, there's even conspiracies surrounding tinfoil. It's amazing.
Well, let me intervene on that one.
Yeah.
I'm one of those, by the way. I got rid of aluminum out of my food supply, out of my cooking pans, and I don't drink stuff out of aluminum cans and so forth. Aluminum is bad for you. I don't care what you call me for saying that, but I know it's bad, and I can prove it to you. Anyway, that's all.
Yeah, well, hey, it's a great way to get dementia and all sorts of other issues that rise,
Exactly. Yeah.
cancer, etc. You wrote the book World Without Cancer. We're not going to get into all that right now today, but we do many videos with John Richardson here, and we do love them over at RNC Store, getting that message out as well about Laetrile. But I wanted to kind of go into the issue of dependence on the system to these technocracies that we were just talking about, this idea of bringing people under a digital ID system in little 15-minute cities. The left has it with the climate lobby. The right has it with biometrics on migrants. They are calling now for some severe databases to be created for just in time for the economy to collapse, for CBDCs to be created, for digital IDs in Europe, and all these things to happen during a war. I mean, there's no coincidences here. People are made to be extremely dependent. And of course, people don't seem to see that major red pill there that is right in front of their eyes. Hey, if you guys don't prepare yourself, you will have to succumb to their rations. Who knows if it's modified RNA rations? Who knows what kind of poison, Soylent Green kind of stuff they'll be doing in Logan's Run 2.0. But Mr. Griffin, the idea of solutions is so important to all of us, obviously. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on just people stocking up on things like storable food, stocking up on things as far as self-defense, as far as food, as far as water, as far as backup electricity, because you obviously have lived remotely much of your life. I've been to your house before. And it's obviously, as far as the house I went to, you were pretty far out there and it's quite the drive. And obviously, you've been looking at ways to prepare yourself for the inevitable, whether it happens tomorrow or in 10 years. Obviously, it looks like it's coming closer now. What are your thoughts on just prepping in general, having the basics ready for a few months?
Good question. That's something that needs to be examined carefully. There's some pros and some cons in that argument that you don't see at first. First of all, let me say that you mentioned I'm pretty far out there. Yeah, I do have a retreat. I call it my retreat. I don't mean in the sense that I'm retreating and running away from the battle, but I mean it in the sense of having a place to get away from the hustle and bustle of civilization, and where you can think and watch nature. Everybody knows where I am. I mean, when they come, if they ever come to pick me up, they'll know exactly where I am, and so that's. And I did put a power grid in place, a solar system that is not dependent on the grid at all. So if the power goes down, I'm completely independent. So that was all. I did that a long time ago. It just seemed like a good idea because I am out in the country and the power does go down every once in a while. Yeah. So I don't want to go for a week or two without power out there even. So having said that, obviously it's a good idea to prepare for shortages, especially when we know. I mean, we know that they are planning to cut off all the conveniences of civilization, to thrust us in a position of total panic and total despair and total dependency on the government to provide us with everything. I mean, when the power goes off, I mean, really goes off and stays off for a long time, what do you think these cities are going to look like? When you don't, without power, you eventually don't have water. You don't have electricity and gas stations. You don't have the banking system working. You can't go to a grocery store and put your credit card into the slot and buy something. It's probably all been looted out by that time anyway, but everything stops. And they know this, and they're planning on several ways to do that. And as Klaus Schwab would say when he was asked, what does the future look like? He said over and over again, multiple crises. Multiple crises.
And to intervene just for a moment here, I also want to point out Yuval Noah Harari's quote. He says, I quote, "I dream of a world where people are placated on drugs playing video games," which is an incredibly ominous thing to openly say, and no one calls him on it. But
yeah,
I'm calling.
Yeah, he said that on video, and then he laughed about it as though it was a joke. But nevertheless, we know it wasn't a joke. Yeah. That's the truth. He's probably laughing because he found himself saying it on camera.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't believe I'm still getting away with this. Meanwhile, Elon Musk, here's some UBI for the AI that's going to destroy humanity that I'm helping create more than anyone else. Yeah. It's perfect. It's it all seems they say what they're going to do. People always say, "Are you Nostradamus?" No, they say what they're going to do, and I'm just repeating it. And then
I believe them.
yeah, exactly.
I believe them. So back to the real question, though, is that what about this business of preparation? Obviously, it's a good idea. And now the other side of the coin is that if that's all we do, we lose. There's an old saying that the purely defensive is doomed to defeat, ultimately. You cannot win any contest playing defense all the time. You have to play to be the winner. Otherwise, you will lose. Yeah. So this is an element that is missing from our movement. Very few people are talking about anything other than how do we survive this a little longer than my neighbor. You know, if we're not going to have water, I better have an extra water supply. Or we're not going to have food, I better grow some food. Oh, we don't have electricity, I better get a solar system. We don't have money, well, I better have something to barter. So all of that is good. I'm all for it, and I've tried to do something in all of those categories. But I know that none of that is going to be in the long run of any, it's not going to solve the problem. It'll just delay it a little bit. And of course, there is an argument, well, I'm old, you know, I don't have to do this forever, just long enough as I don't care about the future. I don't care about anybody else. I just care about me and my family and so forth, which I think is it's a sad point of view.
And no one can say that to you, by the way, because you've been doing that. I'm going to bring up the fact that you're turning 94 this year, and you are still hard at work trying to wake up the population. So anyone that's going to say, "Oh, I'm old, I can't do this anymore. I'm just going to sit and relax." I mean, I've never seen someone work so hard, not just in their 80s, but now 90s. It's incredible. I just have to throw a compliment out there for you.
Well, I don't want to miss out on the victory.
Exactly.
That'd be a great celebration. Well, no, that's facetious, of course. I do believe that it will be victorious for us, but it won't be in my lifetime. And I'm sorry to tell you, Josh, probably not even in your lifetime. Although it's possible if we wise up and do the right things and be prepared to know that we're going to have to pay some prices for it. It's not just going to come easy like who you're going to vote for and put in the right man or something. Politics is not going to solve the problem. It's only going to worsen it. Yeah. Once we get those things clear in our mind so that we don't wind up just making the matter worse, then, yeah, I don't think there's any question that eventually this movement will be victorious, because it'll get so bad at some point that everyone will understand it. But the only question is, will it then be too late? That's the big question. And even if we say, yes, it's too late, we have to say, too late for whom? Is it us, or is it our children, our grandchildren, and so forth? And I'm very confident. In fact, I can't see it any other way, thinking as optimistically as I am about human nature. It's a wonderful thing. Once human nature is allowed to be free and based on reason instead of propaganda, it always works in our favor for the development and advancement of mankind, not to its destruction. But that's just a question then of time. Yeah. Well, I don't want it to be another 1,000 years. I'd like to see another decade maybe, or something like that, and get on with it. So I go to bed every night with a big smile on my face, not because I think that we're going to win at the next election or anything like that, or in the morning. It's a big smile because I think, boy, today I laid one more brick in the foundation of something that we're building that will be magnificent in the future. And if we can all just lay a couple of bricks a day, it will happen. Yeah. But anyway, I think. Yeah, well, that's all. That's it.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think I feel it's unfortunate that if we look throughout history, we've had multiple resets. We've had in many ancient civilizations we don't even know existed anymore that were powerful at one point, in my opinion, and now we're going into a reset now. And I feel like it's hard to avoid a mass depopulation event, but I also believe that good overcomes evil eventually, and that Tower of Babel they build up eventually out of their hubris comes crashing down. I want to talk about these solutions and seriously, because of course Red Pill Expo is coming up July 12th and 13th in person, free online through a live stream. But I highly recommend people go and see it in person in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's going to be an amazing time. I've enjoyed I've enjoyed so much the past Red Pill Expos. And of course, there's workshops, I believe, on the 14th. I don't know if any of it goes to the 15th, but a lot of amazing people are going to be speaking there. Explain where Red Pill Expo comes in and Red Pill University comes in as a solution. And by the way, link is in the description, everyone, but how it comes in as a solution to the issues that we're talking about today.
How much time do we have? That's a big one. It gets kind of convoluted because we do have layers. By the way, I copied this part of the strategy from our enemy, from the cabal.
Yeah.
One of the things I gradually became aware of is that they're not just a single visible thrust. They have many different tactics, different strategies, different goals for different segments of the population and at different times. They're very, very smart people. Mm-hmm. And I decided that if I want to recapture, I mean, for the world, not just for me, I'm not talking about being a dictator, but if I want to help recapture control of our systems where it benefits the people instead of the rulers, how do I do this? I just don't stand up and announce and say, this is what we should do. And unfortunately, this is where a lot of our so-called leaders today are. We should do this, we should do that. Oh, and I just wrote a book, we do this, 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 and this, and after that we should do that. We should put God back in the classroom. We should get rid of all of these evil people from government. We've got to clean out the corrupt court system. We've got to we could do this, 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 and this. There, I just told you what to do. Now go forth and do it. Yeah. Well, that didn't help very much. How do you do these things? Well, that's where you have to look at how did our enemy do it. Our enemy took over all of the territory and all of the ideology territory as well, without basically firing a shot. There might have been a lot of people killed, but not a war, not a hot war or anything like that. It was taken over by soldiers who were your neighbors, were citizens of your country. It was taken over from within, not from invasion from outside. And this is the part that people have got to recognize, that our enemy is not, where is it, China? Is it Russia? No, it's here. And the guys that'll show up at our door with the gear and the rifles say, into the truck, they won't be from another country. They'll speak English, and it might even be your neighbor's son, and he will follow orders because he will be trained to do that. This is the new kind of warfare we're in. So how did that come to pass without fighting a war? Well, we have to study the strategy of our enemy, and they did it through the strategy pretty much advanced by Cecil Rhodes, who was a historical figure for the advancement of the British Empire.
That's where the Rhodes Scholarship comes from.
The Rhodes Scholarships, and he was the key man in South Africa in the early days. Personally controlled most of the diamonds and mineral deposits of all of South Africa. One of the richest men in the world. And when he died, he didn't leave that money to his family or anybody he knew. He left it to the creation of a secret society. And we know about this because he wrote a diary. And a lot of people in that secret society talked about it, including William Stead, who was the administrator of the estate. And you can just read his book, and he'll tell you what Cecil Rhodes did. And also Rhodes himself had his own personal memoirs, which survived. And what he said was, we want to take over the world, but we want to do it without anybody noticing. And one of the first things he said, our organization, which is one of the biggest conspiracy organizations still in existence today, he decided, we will not have a name. What? And he explained that we don't have a name because we don't want to make it easy for anybody to talk about us. They'll struggle for a name. We know this is true because the fellow that wrote, let's see, it was the professor, Carroll Quigley. Yeah. Carroll Quigley wrote a couple of books.
Tragedy and Hope.
Yeah, Tragedy and Hope. And he explained all of this. And he was hired by the Rhodesian conspiracy to do their history. Mm-hmm. And he said, in his own book, he said, I was never a member of it, but I was invited into their inner circle and had access to all their private files because they wanted me to write their history. He said, I have no objection to their goals or their strategies. Only thing I object to is that they prefer to remain hidden and secret. That's the only thing. So if you read Quigley, it's a big, thick book, even thicker than mine. And you get the whole story. So I mention it because, well, why? Because I sort of wondered, that's such a fascinating part of the story. He said that to conquer the world, you take it over from each country, you take it over from the inside. And you do it through becoming dominant in the power centers of society, the political parties, the government agencies, the church organizations, the banking system, the educational system, the judicial system. And he just left it. We go into those organizations and build from the bottom up. We don't come in from the top as a conqueror at the head of an army and establish it from the top down. We come in from the bottom and infiltrate into the institutions of that country until finally we control all the people. They're thinking, we are their leaders, they think. And they think that's our job, is to become a leader in all these organizations, a labor union, a political party, a government, all these things. Schools have to be, banks have to be dominated by our people with our vision of world dominance. Okay, there's the strategy. Now, is there anything ethically wrong with that? I had to ask that. Could we follow that strategy? And first of all, I didn't want to do it because these are the bad people. I don't want to do anything that they would do. And I kept thinking, well, that's stupid. If they're smarter than you, why don't you, as long as it's ethical? Mm-hmm. I said, well, what's unethical about what they did? Well, actually nothing, except that they lied about it. They did it in secret. And they pretended that they were something else. They denied what they were doing. Now, as long as we could use the same strategies, but let's boast of it rather than hide it. Now, that's a handicap, to be sure. But we have nothing to hide, really. Actually, they did. They had to do it in a true conspiratorial manner because they knew that if the public who they were trying to conquer, if they caught wind of it, they wouldn't go for it. Whereas in our case, if the public catches wind of what we're trying to do, they should love it because it's for their, really genuinely for their purpose. So I decided, okay, that'll be our strategy. We will go into the societies and power centers of society and offer our effort, our work to advance their causes and become influential in all of these systems from the ground up, not from the top down. And that's what we're doing. So having done that, I decided that I created an organization called Freedom Force International. And it was a kind of a think tank organization, still in existence. It's still our hardcore center. And that's what Cecil Rhodes did. He had his little group on the inside, and then they had 3 or 4 people. Then on the outside, he created a ring, and that was a group of 12 people. They sometimes called them round tables. And that 12 wasn't sure who was controlling. They thought they were the whole enchilada, but no, there was the one man in the center. And then that group created another ring around it, and there was a larger group, maybe a couple of thousand people. And then around that, until the last ring was the political parties. And that would cover the whole society. And none of those rings thought that they were being controlled from the inside or influenced from the inside. They always thought they were the whole enchilada. And that's how a few people can control the whole multitude, according to Cecil Rhodes. Well, by golly, he did it. That's exactly what he did, and how this conspiracy works. And I'll call it what it is, a conspiracy. Yeah. So, and if we want to define that word, I'll come back to it later. Nobody can object to that word if they understand what it really means. So I decided that we would do that. So we got this Freedom Force International rolling, but it was a think tank. Well, we had a couple of hundred members, maybe 1,000 members. You can't do this with 1,000 people in the world. We need to reach out to more people than that, and we have to simplify it a little bit. Not everybody can be a historian or philosopher. You know, they don't have time for it. Like some of us, we devote our lives to it, like you probably do too. So we're candidates for Freedom Force International. But what about that larger group outside of us that have the right instincts and the right knowledge and the right, orientation, and they're ready to help us, and they read what we write. That's right, we got that. And what do? Well, it's our job now to show these are the things we can do. So we have to reach out to a larger group than just Freedom Force. So how do we do that? Well, I went back and studied Cecil Rhodes some more. And what he did is each time he created a larger ring, he simplified the message. So it's easier to understand, less all-inclusive, but more appealing and quicker to understand for those that don't have the time to devote their whole lives to it. So that's what we did. I created something called the Red Pill Expo. Well, why don't we go on the road with a program with our own instructors, our own people who've been awakened from their professions and their lifestyles and so forth, and taken the red pill to see the way the world really works, and use them as our teachers, our instructors to spread the word. Well, you came to our first meeting, as I recall, back in 1917 or 2017. No, we're not that old. Yeah, 2017,
Yeah.
In Bozeman, Montana.
Yep.
And we were kind of nervous about that because it was the first time we put on a public event, and we thought people are going to laugh at us at Red Pill Expo. It's some kind of, hokey pop psychology thing. But they came, Josh, as you know, they came from all around the world. We had people there from, I think, 7 or 8 different countries.
And it was a great test, by the way, Ed, because we were talking about Bozeman, Montana, not New York City for the first event. So this is the first time that event went on, 2017. And I believe it was June or something like that. And we show up in Bozeman, Montana, which isn't like the easiest place in the world to get to. Amazing place. I've been there many times since. It's a great town, but you have to kind of go out of your way to get there. And it filled up, and it was an amazing show of support, and amazing people who came out, and it was unbelievable. It was the first time I'd been to an event like that where I could walk into the audience, and I'm talking to the average person who has a lot of very serious concerns about where the world is going, and look where it's gone since. And of course, people that you've seen on television or you've read their books, and they all come together in one place. They mingle, they talk, and you get so much out of it. I walked away so inspired from that first one, and everyone that has come since.
Yes. Well, that was the expected result, but we didn't think we were going to get it. We thought, oh, maybe 100 people would show up. We got everything but the band ready to toot. What happens if only 100 people show up? Well, as you said, we packed the place. I don't know how many it was, but it was a full house. To us, it looked like a national convention of the Democrat Party or something like that. Yeah. So we knew we had rung the bell with the concept of the red pill, because that popularized what we're talking about. All we're doing is saying, look, wake up to reality. That's all. See the world the way it really works, and take the red pill. So we tagged on to the pop psychology of the movie, The Matrix, and all of that. So we knew we had done the right thing. We didn't cheapen our message at all. We just changed it, made it a little more fun, popular than the hardcore. What are the 7 principles of individualism versus collectivism? We didn't go there yet. And that was for the ones that wanted to get deeper into it. So that's it. That was the Red Pill Expo. And then we decided, well, we can't save the world with one meeting a year. Hey, this has got to go 24/7. It's got to be not just in one town. It's got to be in every community in the world. This is a good step, but we ain't there yet. Mm-hmm. So then we decided to go and create the Red Pill University, which is a 24/7 thing. It's more or less geared to the internet. It's where all these people can come together, not face to face. I mean, in real time. You and I are face to face. It seems like we're talking across the breakfast table here. But when you can shake somebody's hand and joke and laugh with them and participate in a group discussion, and you realize you're not alone, that this is the real America, at least in our country, it's the real America, although we had people there from other countries. If we did that in every country, in every community, in every city, we could recapture the world. And that's the strategy in a nutshell, what we're doing. And all these different things are confusing at first, but each level is designed to appeal to a different group of the population, depending pretty much on their level of understanding, pretty much by their motivation, pretty much on how much time they have to devote to it, and all that sort of thing. And it's working. I'm happy to say it's working. So I'm really happy.
I'm really happy too. And, I've seen it develop over these years, and it's become its own thing. And I mean, honestly, every time I've ever gone to a Red Pill Expo, I felt so good coming out of it. You get this feeling of hope that you don't usually have. Not hopium. Hopium is a deadly drug. James Corbett reports on hopium all the time. Yeah. Don't have too much hopium. You're going to lose your mind and sit on your hands. But you also don't need too much negativity and too much lack of faith. There's this middle ground that you get at the Red Pill Expo where you feel the hope for the future, You also understand the problems that you're facing. You also know, in many cases, what to do about those problems. And you are aware of the psychological operations that are going on around you as well, that might try to reel you in and trick you into falling for the establishment that so many of us have been trying to push back against. So it gets you from multiple different angles. And I've learned about so much from all angles at the Red Pill Expo in the past. And this is why I'm always so excited to talk about it. Again, there is a link in the description, by the way, to those that are watching right now, redpillexpo.org and redpilluniversity.org. You could go into the description, get your tickets now. It's about a month away. You have time. Tulsa, Oklahoma. I know a lot of you guys are looking for something to do in the summer. For those that aren't just awake, but understand where things are going and want to get together and try and strategize. That's an amazing way to deal with these issues instead of, so many, just we're seeing perpetual circles across the board with many of these events, not the Red Pill Expo. This is something that you'll actually get some fruits out of. You'll be able to harvest this for later on when you go home. So I think it's incredibly important. And, I'm always so happy to be joined by you, Mr. Griffin. It's been a while, but we've, going back to the first time I ever interviewed you in 2014, we delved into your childhood, your teen years, the 50s and the 60s, and how you really got into all this stuff. And I really want to end this interview today asking you something that I've been wanting to ask you for quite some time, actually, because I think about it for myself a lot as well going forward. What do you want your legacy to be 50, 100 years from now?
That should be an easy question to answer. I could think of a lot of things, but you want me to come up with the one that's bigger than all the rest. Mm-hmm. So it's not my legacy in the sense that I don't care whether anybody remembers me as a person or as a name. In that sense of the legacy, I don't care about it. Wherever I am at that point, what difference does it make to me? But it makes a difference to me now in terms of how I think of what the future will look like, with or without my name attached to it. And what I see in that future would really be my legacy, and that is freedom restored. I think freedom is the missing ingredient of Homo sapiens. I think it was somehow the purpose of man is to create his own legacy in that sense. As I look back on this ancient history, as little we know about it, we may have erased a lot of knowledge that's just not there anymore. But no matter what it was, we apparently started at a very primitive level compared to where we are today. And what we do seem to know about history is that much of it was based on slavery. It was who had the biggest army, or who was the biggest, strongest man in the community, who was the dominant ruler by right of arms. And that seems to have been the dominant story throughout history up until approximately the time of the French Revolution, where people started thinking about freedom. Freedom, what a concept. Well, we've never seen freedom in the world. Do you think it would work? Those ideas began to surface with the Enlightenment, began to surface with the invention of the printing press, where people could communicate with large numbers easily. And this new concept of government being of the people was a brand new thought, way late in our history of presence on the earth. And I don't like to use the word evolution because I don't believe in physical evolution at all. Not that I don't believe in it, I just don't see any evidence for it. Right. I don't care whether it's that way or not. Really, what difference does it make? But I just don't see it. It's not logical, and there's no evidence to support it. Right. Physically. But ideologically, or with ideas, there's no question that we are evolving and learning as we go. And so as the evolution of ideas progresses, and if we can prevent it from being stifled and controlled so that that process is used against us, causes us to go backwards in our thinking, negative evolution or de-evolution, if we can prevent that, I think that the plan Uh, there certainly was a plan for us to be here. This all didn't happen by accident. Yeah. Accidents are a product of chaos. I don't see chaos in the universe. Right. So there must be a plan for us. And whatever that plan is, I think it might have something to do with a self-realization of the need to be free. It's probably much more complex than that, but I'm certain that whatever it is, it includes that element, and we're evolving in that direction if we're not interrupted by these conspirators or the cabal. If we're not interrupted by that, my legacy in my mind is to see a future where mankind finally comes out into the sunlight, and he goes, oh, this is where we've been headed for all along. The sunlight is here, and the trees are growing, the intellectual trees are growing. We're free at last. That's what I'd like to see, where man can evolve intellectually to maintain the optimum satisfaction of achievement, independence, and feel like he's a man and not just a product of something else other than the creator. But it's hard to describe. All I know is that every time I think about it, of me and all fellow human beings being free to do what they want to do, to be creative or not to be creative, to being free to do so, to face their own consequences of their own actions, to not look to others to tell them what to do in return for food and shelter and all that kind of thing. It just feels good. It's just yeah, that's where I want to be. And that's my legacy.
That's amazing. I don't think I could possibly put that better myself. And we all feel that in us. If those of you out there that are watching or listening right now that feel that drive towards being a free human being and wanting to see the rest of the population also feel free and not be in one big restrictive collective, I mean, follow those words wisely, because of course we've went over some of the problems today in this video and we've gone into some big solutions. And I think a good start for everyone, again, going and checking out that Red Pill Expo. And of course, as always, Mr. Griffin has a million different books to find online. And I urge people to definitely delve into those if you somehow haven't already, or maybe you're new to this. Maybe, you know, we sometimes hear, Mr. Griffin, from people that are 14 or 15 years old. And then we have other people that are in their 90s talking to us. Actually had someone message me a little while back that was 104 years old. And it's just interesting. It's a common human need, I guess you could say. It's not just a want, it's a need to have freedom, because it comes back to the basis of our humanity, which is individualism. It's our ability to be responsible for ourselves, our free will. So I think it's such an incredible thing that spans all generations, and hopefully people will take it more seriously in future generations going forward, and we learn from the past mistakes and we build on them going into the future. So it's always good to talk to you, and I really appreciate you joining us today, and I hope that we can sit down and talk again soon when you have less things on your hands and you're not running around climbing ladders trying to make sure that this next event goes as planned.
Okay. Well, thanks for that goodwill and that wish, and I'm looking forward to it. We've got some. We're still adding speakers to it. By the way, I've been trying to reach a gal. She calls herself Amazing Polly.
Oh, I know her. You want me? I'll message her for you.
Well, I already got an answer from her. She says, "Oh, great! I'll be glad to do this." So she's going to be on our program. Excellent. I haven't worked out the details yet, but you know, you mentioned Michael Yon. These are people that you don't hear from generally from these events. Some of the events are just sort of like political rallies. You know, we're the good guys and they're the bad guys. Rah rah rah. You know, that's not our shtick. We talk about individualism versus collectivism, and regardless of who the good guys are supposed to be, what do they believe in? What are their principles? Do they even let you know, or they just say those are the bad guys and vote for me because I'm going to get rid of them for you? No, we're asking people to think, oh, this is a horrible thing to do to your friends.
Yeah. It's always funny when people say, well, this guy's a good guy. They get paid by Palantir and BlackRock, but don't look at that. He says some good things. We haven't learned anything. He said some good things.
Can you imagine that there would be anybody, especially in politics, that would say something they weren't sincere about? That wouldn't be possible, would it?
I don't think it's happened since ancient Greece. It's no, it's I
Hasn't
can't
happened
even
in
think
the last 3 seconds, you mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us today. Again, to everyone watching, the links are in the description. I hope you show up in big numbers. And by the way, quick sidetrack here. I went there as an independent media journalist the first year in 2017, and I gained so much knowledge. Not just that, I gained so many contacts. So those of you out there that want to get the message out, I urge you to buy tickets as well. Go over there, find interviews, talk to people. It's a great way to connect, build community, and of course, build connections that last many, many years into the future. I still talk to so many people that I've met at the first Red Pill, at the second, at the third, fourth, fifth. I still talk to these people regularly. Some of them are good friends of mine. I've gone camping with people like Dr. Kaufman, who spoke at past events. I mean, these are people that you need to hear from, and I urge you to go talk to people, shake some hands, step out of your comfort zone. If you have one that you feel worried about, go up to people, shake their hands. It's an amazing event, and it's an amazing feeling coming out of that. When it comes to real world solutions and having that connection to that community that so many people feel sometimes distant from, with family or friends that might think they're crazy. So this is a good opportunity for all of you. And anyway, thank you so much for joining us again, Mr. Griffin.
Well, thanks a lot, Josh. Thanks for the plug, and I appreciate everything you've done. And someday we're going to have to get together again and talk about your experiences underneath the pyramids. Shall we do that?
we should definitely do that. Yeah, it goes
Okay.
on and on, but I'm happy to help. Absolutely.
Very good.
Thank you. And until next time, my friends, check those links. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
Bye-bye.